Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
Cause I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the deserts bare, man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. Of travel I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. Been to Tullamore, Seymour, Lismore, Mooloolaba, Nambour, Roochdore, Kilmore, Marillaba, Birdsville, Emmaville, Wallaville, Connemara, Connemara, Strathrown, Proserpine, Alladala, Darwin, Gingin, Lilliquin, Muckilla, Wallamilla, Bougainville, Cumberland, Ramakiller. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man.
Yes, it's time for Regional Roundup. And
I listened very closely, Neil. I didn't hear a bell.
No, you didn't. No, you won't hear a bell. There's no bell in it.
No.
Oh, you mean the town of Bell?
Yeah.
Correct. And in keeping with the alliterative nature of regional...
I'm sorry, what was that?
The alliterative nature of Regional Roundup, that is to say that we're going to speak to Nancy Nixon. And she's in Bell. Hello, Nancy.
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Doing very well indeed, thank you. This is Neil. You've already spoken to Rob. Thanks for joining us on Regional Roundup. We are going to... didn't I tell you yesterday that the first three questions Rob would ask you was, who's going to win the footy, what's the rain like, and what do you farm up there? Bang, you got all three.
Pretty much.
Yeah, see, if he's nothing if he's unpredictable.
It's only that I care, Nancy.
Yep. So, and since you told me what you thought the winner was going to be, we're not going to ask you that on the air because you've got no idea, living where you live. Where is Bell is a good starting point.
So, Bell is about 250 kilometres west of Brisbane. We're kind of at the foothills, Nellie. You know, you can kind of see the Bunyas, basically the Bunya Mountains National Park. So pretty close to the Great Dividing Range, a really, really picturesque little town. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Now, there'll be people listening who think Queensland's all tropical and beaches and stuff, so you're nowhere near the beach, obviously being 250 k's inland. Tell us a little bit about the biggest town nearby to give people a compass point to work to.
Okay, so Bell itself is on the Western Downs, so its closest town, bigger town, is Dalby, which most people have heard of.
Yep.
The next closest one, really, Bell is between Dalby and another one called Kingaroy, which is on the South Burnett. So it's nearly kind of jammed, nearly right in the middle between those two.
And we down here know about Joe Bielke Peterson and peanuts when we talk about Kingaroy.
Anyone's heard of Kingaroy, they know all about the peanuts.
Yeah, and when we say peanuts, that is the thing that they grow, as distinct from Rob making disparaging comments about a previous Premier of your state.
It can fit either way, Neil.
And for those thinking Dalby, it's not Dalby, despite the fact it's spelt as Dalby, and it's got nothing to do with sound systems. So what do people do in and around Bell?
So majority, obviously, agriculture. Lots of farming, beef, cattle. They're the two main industries. Piggeries, a few things like that as well, but pretty much ag.
Free-range piggeries, I hope.
No, there are a few, and there's getting more. But yeah, so that's, Dalby's are really agricultural based. If you go further west, then you start getting into gas and mining and, resources and all of that kind of stuff starts to come into play. We actually have a wind farm just over the hill from our property, which is about to expand. So the area's, it's got a diverse amount of different industries.
It's very interesting. Neil made a point about our view of Queensland tends to be pineapples, bananas, tourism, and then when you get out...
peanuts.
And peanuts, of course. And then you get out further and you've got these vast stations, many hundreds of thousands of acres and running beef cattle and putting up with ticks and all that sort of stuff. But there's clearly a big chunk of that Queensland area which is not dissimilar to Victorian agriculture, small farms, cropping, cattle, sheep, all that sort of stuff. And I suppose being 250 kilometres out from Brisbane, how much further west do you need to go before things get a little bit drier?
Look, I like to say I've got family that are only about 100 kilometres away, and the environment is definitely different from like our property because we're mountainous and whatever else. So we're a bit of our own little unique ecosystem. But once you get from there on, especially once you hit Roma and beyond, it's, as you were saying, a lot larger properties. really. And then the spaces, the distance between towns really starts to open up then.
I was working in Roma once, and I drove to St George, which I think is about a 3.5 to 4 hour drive, and in that time I drove through one town getting there, and that was a town called Surat, as I recall.
Yep.
And the folk who are listening, who might have been to Toowoomba, that's not a million miles away.
No, so Toowoomba, we can go from our place and kind of cut through the back way in about an hour and a half, and we can be on the western side of Toowoomba. So Bells are really, this little area is great. Realistically for us, we're not that far from Brisbane. We could whip over to Noosa in about 2.5 hours and be sitting on the beach if we really wanted to.
Yep.
So we're kind of really nicely located. It's just, we're rural, but we're not remote by any circumstances at all.
Yeah, and I think, for those who've not been to Toowoomba, a lot of Victorians might have been to Toowoomba on the pilgrimage drive to Brisbane, because you come up that way and come through Toowoomba from Warwick and come across that way. Toowoomba's not a million miles different to what Ballarat is, for example. A lot of people think Toowoomba must be really hot, but it could, of course, be. It's not all that hot in that part of the world all the time, is it? It's
not, because Toowoomba's so its climate and our farm's climate is very, very similar, because they're both pretty much on top of the range. It's a lot cooler here. We can drive into Dalby and it could be 5 degrees hotter in the summer.
Yep.
35 and above that is a pretty hot day for us in summer. It's very, very rare that we kind of, hit those, on our farm itself, hit 40 degrees. That doesn't happen very often at all. Toowoomba's a lot very similar in that, it can get hot but not extreme heat.
Yeah, and my recollection is not all that humid, unlike it is down on the coast.
That's right. It's dry heat, which for people that have grown up in dry heat, we can't handle that.
Yeah, fair enough. Nancy, we are coming towards the end of our time. Rob's actually got up and gone to the other studio, as he likes to do at this time, because he's got the next program to do. But thank you for telling us a little bit about Bell, because up until you and I met on the phone a few weeks ago, I hadn't heard of Bell, and I thought this is an opportunity for us to learn.
Yep.
So thanks for being part of it.
No worries at all.